My name is Michael and I'm an addict. I started using when I was 16 years old. Started on alcohol and quickly moved to marijuana. Did that for quite some time and finally started using more things like harder drugs like pills, cocaine and different things of that sort. I never really thought that I had a problem. I thought that everything was just a lot of fun. I didn't think that my actions affected anybody else. As time went on, I slowly started to see the effects of what I did. First real consequence that I had was a DUI. I had been up all night drinking and partying, and decided that it was a good idea to go to my buddy's house at 3 o'clock in the morning, wasted. And I remember making a left turn, and the next thing I know, I woke up after hitting a parked car. I tried to pull away and realized that my car was not working at all. It was not going anywhere. And I had to deal with this situation. And it was the first time that I was really going to have some consequences. The first time that I was really going to have to deal with the actions of what I've been doing for the past 8 years. So that in itself was horrifying. And I didn't really comprehend exactly what was going to happen. I'd never really been in trouble with the cops before, but I knew it was going to be a big deal this time. When the families came out, that the car that I hit, they were more worried about me than they were their car. And I couldn't figure out why at the time, but later down the road I figured out, that I had a pretty nice forehead, cut and all that, and blood running down my face. And, in the state that I was in, I really didn't care. I didn't want anybody to touch me. I didn't care about myself at the time. I was just more worried that I wasn't going to have a car. And I remember talking to the cops that night. They get there and they're telling me that we need to do a field sobriety test. And I actually remember talking to them and I said, I'm not going to waste your time, so please don't waste my time. You already know what's going on, so let's just go. Let's go do this. And the cop kind of chuckled a little bit, and he's like, you're actually pretty coherent for what's going on right now. I was like, yeah, this is my normal state. And at that time, that's what I thought. I thought that was my normal state, that I had to be that way all the time in order to function. When I got to the police station, I remember bits and pieces of it. I blew 3 times the limit. I remembered that night when I was a lot younger, my parents told me if I ever got in trouble not to call them, and I remember that night, I was like, well, this is my time, I'm in trouble, I'm not gonna call them. And later, I find out that I have a cousin that works at the jail, and he made the phone call for me. And that was, that was actually God working for me, because otherwise I would have still been sitting there, the next day. That was the first time I'd actually came to terms with how much I really drank, how much I really partied. Admitting it to my family was the biggest part about that, because they didn't really know how bad it was. I moved away when I was 17 so that they wouldn't know how bad it was. I didn't want them to see me go through that, thinking if I just go away, this is not going to be such a big deal, And that was the total opposite. They still had to deal with everything that I dealt with because of my actions and because of what I did on a daily basis. So that was the first time they really understood how bad it was, and that was the first time that my dad really told me how much he understands, and he had been in my shoes at a point in time in his life. That was an amazing experience. Even though I was still in my addiction at that time, it kind of put that seed in my head that I wasn't alone at that time. And that was what really, really helped me out a lot that night and helped me to get through. They came and bailed me out that night. When they saw me, they couldn't believe how bad off I really was. It had been a while since they had seen me. It had been a while since, that I had really even cared about what I looked like or any of that sort. And it was starting to show. A year later, after that DUI is when I really finally was able to get some help. After not being able to get another car after that, not being able to get my license back because I was too worried about staying drunk and staying high instead of going and taking care of the things that I needed to take care of. I just wanted to party instead of getting my car back and getting my license back. I was really hurting myself more and more each time until I just could not take it anymore. I finally reached out to my mom and, told her that I needed to do something. It never really was an option before. I did some research myself and looked into some treatment centers, and I ended up out here in Arizona. I went to a treatment center out here, and I started to take suggestions. From day one, they told me to get a sponsor. I got a sponsor. They told me to start working the steps. I started working the steps. Everything that they told me to do, I started to do, and it was one of the things that really changed my life quickly. I could see on a daily basis my life starting to change. At first, I really didn't know what I wanted. I really didn't know how to get started, but those suggestions that they gave me is where I began. As time went on, I just kept doing what they told me to do. Started to see changes slowly. Personality in the way that I cared about others, the way that I looked at others. It wasn't all about me anymore. It was about other people and what I could do to help them out. I remember in very early sobriety calling my sponsor, and I'm like, hey man, this dude doesn't get it. What do I do? And at the time, he just told me to kind of worry about myself, that I needed to focus on me. And that's what I did for a while. I did treatment for about 120 days. After I got out of treatment, I went straight into sober living. I stayed in sober living for 8 months. I watched a lot of guys come in and out of that program. As I was leaving, they asked me what the difference was between myself and other guys that came through. And I told them what it came down to is that I did the work. Put in the time, I put in the effort. I made those late phone calls when I wasn't doing okay, and I wasn't afraid to reach out to those people in my circle. And that's really what got me through. I started to work, as I got into sober living. I went back to what I knew, and that was restaurants, and I quickly figured out that wasn't for me, that I wanted to help other addicts and alcoholics. So I started working, in treatment to where I was able to help other people. Being able to help other people find what I found is the biggest gift in life. I really enjoy what I do today. I really get to help other people, and it's awesome. I get to watch other guys, the light turn on in their eyes, and that's an awesome experience. I just really enjoy life. I never thought that was possible. I never thought that I could be happy sober. At 16 months sober, I'm able to show these guys that, it is possible, and that, if you just continue to do what is asked of you, that the possibilities are endless. I work with many different treatment centers and sober livings. Just try to show these guys, that first off, relapse doesn't have to be a part of your story. That's something that it doesn't have to be. A lot of these guys, these days, they get very nervous about it, and, they don't want to go back out. They don't want to go back to what they know. And, I'm glad that I could be here to help and guide them, just like somebody did for me. And it's an awesome experience. It really is. Never thought that I'd be living in a different state. I never thought that things could be as good as they are. Things go wrong, I'm still able to reach out to the guys that I know in the rooms and know what to do in situations, when we have other addicts that are falling off, and not have to pick up in order to deal with those things. If you're feeling lonely, miserable, like you just don't want to go on anymore, we've found something that is absolutely amazing. There's hope, there is peace, serenity. There's so many joyous moments. You don't have to feel that way anymore. You don't have to be alone. That was one thing that I ran from all my life, and I realized that's exactly what I needed and where I needed to be. And it's the biggest part of my recovery is the higher power. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to be alive and to be sober today. And I wouldn't have it any other way.